I'm very, very hyper focused on marketing. And the reason why is I can control, right? If I can control the type of customers I can bring in every day, I can control our revenue, I can control scaling, I can control a lot of different factors of it.
Welcome to the Fully Funded Show. Whether you're a capital raiser, deal sponsor, fund manager, or LP investor, we've got the insights you need for investing success. Join Sam Silverman each week for expert interviews, insider tips, and strategies to fully fund your ventures. Let's go!
All right, we are back with the Fully Funded Show, this time with Ken Manesse. Ken, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk to you and share some wins and some losses with you.
There you go. Cool. But yeah, no, Ken and I know each other from the real estate investing world and thought the business that he's running as it relates to lending is really interesting. So Ken, can you walk us through like what that business looks like that you're running today?
Yeah, so I started a company back in 2015, and we offer working capital to small businesses. So it's basically short-term funding up to about 3 years, all the way down to 3 months, to really mom and pop type of businesses, right? Companies doing primarily under $30 million a year in revenue, all the way down to probably $250K in annual revenue. So we offer them basically, an ease of access to gain capital within about 24 hours, right? So customers can come to our website, apply for funding, and we have a network of funding partners that we work with, and we fund a little bit in-house as well. And we get this access to capital to small businesses nationwide in the U.S.
So what's your background? Like, how'd you get into all that?
Yeah, so I actually started in sales. So I was, when I was younger, I was working at restaurants, right? I was working at restaurants, and then just as a waiter, and then I was broke as hell, and I had to get another, restaurant job. I was working 2 jobs, one in the morning, one at night, and I was still broke, right? So I had to figure out something because I wasn't able to afford, just basic, day-to-day life, right? So my buddy was doing mortgage sales, and he's like, hey, I can get you an opening position, just like straight from the bottom floor, and, see if you can like it, right? And once I got in there, that was the first time I got exposed to, guys and girls making 10, 20, 30, 50K a month, 100K a month, right? I didn't even know that was possible before. Obviously, I grew up in a kind of a normal environment, but money wasn't really talked about a lot, right? And, seeing, these salespeople make that kind of money really opened up my eyes. So that got me really excited, being like, hey, this could be a solution to my problem, so I can get out of this like hole I'm in, right? This financial kind of hole. So I kind of started my sales journey from there. And then I was in mortgage for a little bit. And then I got into actual business funding sales. And I was doing that for probably about a year and a half before I started my company. So I think, I never set out to be an entrepreneur or to be a business owner. I was always just trying to improve my situation. So from working at a restaurant to getting into sales, to getting into like the higher level sales, it was always about trying to level up my income. And it was kind of a natural progression of, some sales to entrepreneurship. And that's how it kind of kicked off for me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, mine was really similar, right? Where I started entrepreneurship, I went to college, got into sales, and had no clue what to go do. And sales gives you great exposure to meritocracy, right? Like you
Yeah.
get paid based on performance. You have the ability to earn really well. Your education likely doesn't matter at all too. I think you probably see it a lot now too. Like, kind of walk me through what your team looks like today, right? In terms of the people you have working for you, who are the ones out originating loans. Like, what are a lot of their backgrounds?
Yeah. So we have a team probably about 40 people all together right now. All right. We have a sales team of probably about 30 sales reps, and our sales reps are just from different industries, right? Mortgage, um, other type of financial products. They're just kind of a diverse background. But I think, for them to be successful in like the actual sales position is we sell to entrepreneurs. Okay. So selling like a normal consumer on a mortgage and a low rate, that's like a relatively easy sell. Sell an entrepreneur, right? A, cost of capital and a term and all that stuff is a lot harder. Entrepreneurs are people that started with nothing, that grew their company, that, they have established themselves, and then you got to sell them. They're very, very hard, and they have a lot of questions. They're very smart, you know what I mean, for the most part. And, it's just a different sale, right? So I think guys that do well in, sales in our industry is you got to understand who you're talking to, and be able to connect with them and be able to consult them versus sell them. You know what I mean? Because these guys are going to sniff it out and they're going to walk all over you, right? So that is typically kind of like the profile of our sales reps, and it's, some of our top salespeople we have some women in the space, and they just do significantly better than a lot of males. And I think it's primarily just because they can communicate a little bit different to entrepreneurs. We're always used to talking to men and all that stuff. So it's interesting to see, but we've definitely seen, a catapult in just the overall funding every single year for our company and then industry wide. It just gets bigger and bigger as small businesses don't have access to capital. So it gives us, a really long roadmap or runway, might I say, to sustain, longevity for our industry.
So when you say it's a hard sale, right, versus selling a, 4 to 8% mortgage, right,
Yeah.
depending on where things are in the economy, walk us through like what are typical terms for someone taking out capital for 3 to 36 months?
Yeah, so we have a couple different programs available. We have like a traditional line of credit. They're paying anywhere from 1 to 3% a month on that, and that could be a 12-month line of credit, right? We do offer SBA 7As, but our main product is called a merchant cash advance. So another term is revenue-based financing. So the terms are typically up to about 18 months, and the pricing structure can get all the way up to about 40 to 50%. So it's significantly higher than your normal terms. But why is that rate there? Why is that cost of capital there? Is because there's no collateral to it. So we're investing to small businesses, which is like the most risky credit profiles, right? Because there's no collateral, right? So we're able to offset that by offering short terms and offering a higher cost of capital, and then also choosing, what type of customers are best going to, fit for reduced in defaults. And we find a good credit box for that. And that's how we've been able to basically offer a product to these customers and have them keep coming back.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you have to go sell a 30, 40, 50% note, right?
Yeah.
For short-term funding. So you have to go help them prove the business case that they actually need that, right? In terms of their future earnings outpacing that by a significant margin. And you also go tie it to of how do you go measure risk when looking at the amount of defaults you'll have in that, right? So basically just assume on your end, higher return on your investments, right? But also a level that will go to zero as well.
Yeah, for sure. So like what we have is like a credit box of internally. We probably funded probably about 750 million since we started the company, close to $1 billion to small businesses, and that's over tens of thousands of customers every single year, right? So we have a lot of data points, and same with our funding partners. But we are able to see what credit profiles perform well, what customers and industries are doing well through seasonalities. So we can really find a good credit profile, and then those are the customers that we tend to target. So we can bring in the best type of customers that fit our credit box, that have the best use of capital. So then we can have a better sales flow for our sales floor, and ultimately providing the capital to our businesses.
So with that in mind too, like where does the capital come from that you lend out of? I know you mentioned doing some of it in-house and also probably having partners for it. Like what does that makeup look like of where the capital comes from to go lend to all these customers?
Yeah, so they're not traditional like Wells Fargo's and Chase Banks and stuff like that. These are private lending companies. So I guess you can think of like almost like a mini little hedge fund, right? So these are companies that just focus on small business funding. That's all they do. So they receive applications from independent sales organizations like us, which is another term is called ISO, and we send them applications and financials for these businesses, and in return they give us an approval. We pitch the approval, and then they fund the deal, and they actually hold it on their balance sheet and service the debt. So we have probably about 40 different funding partners for different credit box and different tiers, where if that customer applies online and we see where they're falling in terms of their credit profile, we'll send it to that funding institution to get an approval. So we have a variety of these funders, and they're large and small. Some are larger funders and some are very big, publicly traded, doing hundreds of millions a year in revenue, and some are a lot smaller. So we have all these different type of buckets where we can put these customers to help them get the capital that they need.
Got it. And you mentioned looking at bringing more of this in-house. Like what's that thought process behind that?
Yeah, so like I think kind of like everything in like what I was talking about earlier, is just like how do I constantly improve on what we're doing, right? So like back in the day, is how do I improve my financial, stance, right? And then, okay, how do I get to the next level with my business? How do I grow my company? So for this, it's just a natural progression. So we already do all of our marketing in-house, meaning we go out and target our customer demographic and our profiles in-house with our marketing team. And why we do that is control, right? I want to have control of the customers that we're reaching out to, right? I want to have control of how many leads we're bringing in every day. So after doing that for, almost 8 years now and being primarily a broker, we want to have more control, right? We want to have more control and be able to, potentially, make a lot more money, right? So instead of selling the debt off, or the application off, we can fund it in-house and actually hold the debt on our balance sheet, which if we're doing, $150 million a year in funded volume like we did last year, that's a significant, opportunity for us, right? So before COVID hit in 2020, we were kind of mentally prepping this stuff, right? And then COVID hit, it kind of changed everything real quick for us. And then we kind of revamped the business once everything kind of opened up. So it kind of put us on our heels a little bit. But this whole time in the back of our head, we knew we wanted to get into the direct funding space and be the bank, right? Because that way we can generate the leads in-house, we can do the sales in-house, and we can service the debt in-house. So I can do everything in-house and I can control it. I can use better technology. I can use all of our AI and automations and all of our tech stack to, find the right credit profile and to get this customer the funding quickly through basically streamlined technology and sales, right? So again, I think it's just having the control of it and to be able to scale our company past, what we're able to do right now. So, with sales, just a normal sales organization, there's bandwidth with sales individuals, right? But if you're able to harness debt and leverage with the sales organization, then you got a really powerful tool to achieve scale. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense versus taking a likely percentage brokerage fee, right, for passing off that qualified lead applicant to someone who then owned that debt. You can go own the entire piece of it, take on the risk yourself, and likely, outproduce those returns by multiples, I assume.
Yeah, 100%. So the returns are really high. We're launching a fund here pretty soon. So we're launching a 506c fund for accredited investors, and they're going to be able to actually invest into the fund, which we're going to be investing into small businesses, just the businesses that we're generating and selling in-house. So we're kind of cherry picking the best of the best. Imagine having a list of, 10,000 customers of investors, right, for you, and you can work with just the ones that you want to work with, right? And you can still get the other, help the other people out, but you're going to work with these customers and you're going to pinpoint them, right? So that's what we've been able to do through like our data and analytics and our reporting and our technology is really find like the least customer that has the least risk of default and the highest chance for yield, right? So we pinpointed those customer profiles, and those are the customers that we're going to be targeting for our fund. The fund's pretty basic structured, almost like a real estate fund in a sense, where we're raising capital from accredited investors. It's a 3-year hold. We're paying dividends, 7.5% the first year, second year 10%, and then there's kind of a windfall at the end. So we reinvest the capital as the repayments of the fundings come in to leverage a higher yield for the investor. And we're targeting about a 65% return for the investor over 3 years.
Yeah, it's smart because for you, the biggest thing you have in your advantage is the cycling of capital, how quickly you can go turn that capital to go re-leverage it, right? So like you may raise $1 and be able to use that dollar 3, 4, 5 times in that 3-year period, which becomes really attractive to go juice returns. On your end, I know you mentioned the data analytics and different data points you use for picking out the best loans. Like, walk me through what a few of those data points are that you found make up a really quality lendee that is taking on your capital to go scale their business.
Yeah, so we've funded, over tens of thousands of customers, small businesses over our 8 years. We have a lot of data, right? So we know what customers and what industries and what credit profiles perform. And why did this business perform and why did this business not perform, right? So, versus us like jumping in the gate a little bit, probably we could have done it a lot faster. We took our time with it to really understand the data. We worked with data scientists. We worked with advisors to analyze our data with us and set up the right, basically reporting to structure the correct profile that we want to target, right? But we look at credit scores, we look at trade lines, we work at their actual cash flow of their business, and that's heavily what it's determined on, how they're handling their cash flow. That means like the business bank statements, how they're handling their deposits, their negative days, their incoming and outgoing cash flow, and then we look at anything on the actual person's side of background checks, and then we're looking at time of business, industries. So we're looking at multiple different factors, right? And everything is analyzed in real time through our system to see if that customer is a pass or a fail for a potential default or not, right? And if it fits our box, then we're going to go out and lend to them.
Really interesting. And then on the, for you, I think a big thing too is just how do you go attract your leads, right? Like walk us through what systems, process that you've used to consistently go drive your lead flow, is that's the life on your business, right? Predictability for your sales team helps you go recruit sales hires, bring great people there as well, make sure they keep getting paid. Like help me understand what that looks like for you and your system process funnels around leads.
Yeah. So I'm very, very hyper focused on marketing. And the reason why is I can control, right? If I can control the type of customers I can bring in every day, I can control our revenue, I can control scaling, I can control a lot of different factors of it, right? So we do a lot of outbound marketing, and we do it all in house. But basically, we do a lot of email, we do a lot of calling, and we do a lot of digital, right? So let's say I have a customer profile that I want to target of small businesses. We'll go out and target these customers on multiple different platforms, right? Through digital, through email, through calls, and we'll let them know that they're eligible to potentially apply for funding, right? So that way we're always in front of them in a couple different verticals. So when they're ready, they'll apply with us, right? So I think it's just having, multiple different channels and being in front of these people and not just sending them an email saying, "Hey, are you interested?" Right? It's calling these people, letting them know that they're eligible, right? Or following them online and showing ads, right? It's just constantly being in their orbit. So that way, subconsciously, I guess, when they're ready, they're going to apply with us versus like a competitor. So, again, I'm very, very hyper focused on the customers that we're targeting. So we're bringing in the right data. So that way, why would I want to go out and target customers that are not my perfect profile, right? It's a waste of time and energy for our sales team and our processing team and our funding partners, all that stuff, right? So if we can target the right customers and bring them in from the get-go, our job just got a lot easier, right? So then I can bring these people in that have the high yields of, of the commissions that we like and all that good stuff. So then we can, continue to scale our company. But yeah, I think having control of your marketing is one of the key things that's been able to help us scale quickly. But ultimately, it was out of fear of having to depend on outside counsel and outside vendors and stuff like that, right? So I like control because it makes me sleep good at night. But more importantly, I like being able to scale my company, right? And be able to provide a better opportunity for our employees, better product for our customers. And in return, I can, achieve, my financial goals, right? So I think having control of all these little different departments within our, our product and service allows us to, scale and actually create really good profit margins.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. So shifting gears as well, like I completely agree, like the marketing is the lifeline of any business. The ability to go bring your salespeople qualified leads brings you great salespeople, lets them stay there, lets them earn well. Like shifting gears more to the personal side of things as well. Like I know you and I were talking before we started recording here. You've done well, you got a family, right? And you still rent. Like, what's your view on the kind of buy versus rent side of things? Is something I talk about people really frequently, right? I have a ton of
Yeah.
real estate holdings myself, and I rent, and I'm always curious to hear people who have that same kind of sentiment as well as to why.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, I think where it kind of initially seeded in my head was actually following like Grant Cardone, like way back in the day. And I don't follow him too much anymore or anything like that. But like a lot of his premise back in the day was making as much money as you can for yourself and your family, right? And getting that excess cash and then investing that cash into compounding high yield investments with tax, um, opportunities to reduce your tax liabilities, right? That just made like perfect sense to me. So if my goal was to make as much money as possible and to, retain as much money as possible, um, buying a home never made mathematical sense when you actually do the math when it comes to principal and interest and carrying cost and um, everything else that goes in the play with it, right? So if you rent out your place, yes, you're not buying it. And I guess, nowadays it's not as stigmatized, but back in the day when you're telling all your buddies that you're doing well and you're investing in apartments, but you're not buying a home and you're like, it didn't make sense to them. Right. But I was never trying to like justify any of my actions to them. And thank God I didn't. Right. Because I was able to keep buying, keep investing and rolling this stuff over, doing 1031s and all this stuff where I keep rolling the stuff over. Right. So I like the idea of not being tied down to a particular area. That's a great thing, right? Like I can go wherever I want, whenever I want, for the most part. You know what I mean? But B is just mathematically it doesn't make sense, and especially with our area, it's a high cost of living if you want to have a nice big house and all that stuff, right? And I'd rather invest that capital into investments where I can yield a higher return and in return live almost like a kind of like a nomad, I guess you could say. But like I call it just like I like to flow through life, like financially. I don't like having these huge burdens or having these huge liabilities in my life. I like to have, the opportunity to kind of flow through investments and, not have that, that stress of that pressure of, a mortgage or being tied down or whatever liabilities out there. So I don't know. I just had a different way of looking at stuff. And I think, me and you kind of share that same thought process and, what a home is and what's the purpose of it. You know what I mean? And I guess you can say it's similar to a car. It's like, I can care less about cars, right? I mean, they're fun little toys, but like, I don't hold a lot of value in cars. I don't even hold them for that long anyways. You know what I mean? I use them and abuse them, I guess. Right. They get trashed. They're all janked up afterwards and then on to the next. Right. And I don't hold a lot of value. I don't think about that stuff too much. And same with the place I live. I can care less as long as I'm in a good, safe area for my family. I can care less about the place. Right. And that's kind of like a nice thought process to have versus having to worry about every nick and cranny of the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because usually, like mathematically, especially right now with where rates are, whatever place you want to live in, assuming it's a higher end place, higher income type area, is that right now you're probably 1.5 times, give or take, right? Your mortgage versus your rent, plus down payment,
Yeah.
closing costs, transaction costs, furnishing, etc. with it. And usually the only reason you see someone going and locking in a place is either one, it's their biggest asset in terms of the hoped appreciation that they'll have
Yeah.
from like the average person. But I think someone who's more that high earning person, it becomes like purely an emotional type thing.
It
And
is. Yeah.
usually you see that happen when you have the, family, when you have the school districts, right? Like there's interesting hearing your thought process on that as well, having those things that you have to keep in mind too.
Yeah. So like, it is like an emotional thing, right? It's like this weird thing of the American dream, really. You know what I mean? That's been sold of telling everybody like it's the American dream to hold and buy these things and hold them and give them to your kids. And I just think things have changed. The way people make money has changed, the way people invest, the way people are entrepreneurial way more these days, right? With all the things that you can do online. It's just not so structured like it was back in the day for probably our parents, right? There's a lot more opportunities. So I think, nowadays it's just, what's your ultimate goal? If your goal is to stay in one place and go to this one school and, not have to deal with the landlord and all that stuff, then yeah, sure. Like whatever, right? And a lot of people don't worry or not thinking as much as investments and stuff. You know what I mean? They just want to be like comfortable and have their, their little slice of, peace, right? Which is totally okay. But for guys like me and you, I think we like to keep scaling up our opportunities, right? And, in life, I feel like that is done primarily through financial means. So that means I need to choose the best investments, right? So if I can take $1 million instead of buying a home for a couple $1 million and have debt right away, or I can buy an investment property or an investment vehicle or a syndication, you're going to get cash flow, you're going to get tax appreciation, and then you're going to get the capital equity growth. To me, it's like a no brainer. It's really hard to sell me on why I should do the opposite. You know what I mean? When I can go rent a awesome place, great views, great everything, location, be there for a couple of years and see how I feel after that. You know what I mean? And I know I feel like that is just suits my personality a lot more than being stuck in a home for 30 years. And I just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I change my cars every 6 months because I get like loosey, you know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I got to do something different. And same with my place, I'm always like, all right, I always try to lock in a couple of years, but I always tell my landlords like, hey, can I bounce out early if I find something, you know what I mean? And I just like having that, being able to that flow a little bit better in life.
Yeah, dude, it makes a lot of sense. Like most people don't think that way. Like they like the stability, they like the grounded feeling, right? Being locked in that way. Um, but kind of how does that tie to like how you think about business as well? Like for someone who may be starting out looking to go become an entrepreneur, looking to go start something, looking to go figure out how they can go level up their income to have that optionality that you have. Like, what advice would you give someone looking to go start?
Yeah, so I think for there's two sides of the coin. So I think as like an employee or being part of an organization is just put yourself in like the right situation where you can be have, maybe shared equity or sweat equity or a huge cap opportunity of, income, right? So there's guys at our company who do that, do very, very well without having any equity. You know what I mean? And they're able to, invest and live a great life and all that good stuff. But I think being, almost entrepreneurial in spirit when you're working at these organizations and putting yourself in the right situation where you can keep leveling up your income and make sure you're with an organization that, values that, right? And you want to see the owners trying to go achieve bigger, opportunities so you can ride that wave. Now that's a one great way to do it, right? I think a lot of people think you need to be an entrepreneur and start your own business to, be successful. I don't think that's the case. There's plenty of people that have been in the top 5, top 10 of the organization that have made, crazy amount of money, right? So it's not just about being an entrepreneur, it's about putting yourself in the right situation and the right companies that are doing big things and that have big vision, so then you can hopefully scale with them. Now as far as the entrepreneur stuff is, I don't think it is for everybody. I think there's definitely, I think everyone is an entrepreneur at heart because we all started with nothing. We all had to go to school. We all had to get a job. We had to pitch ourselves. We had to look good. We had to, date. We had to try to level up our personal income. So I think everybody is entrepreneurial in that mindset, but I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur because I think there's a lot of things that comes with entrepreneurship that's glorified nowadays, where that's a 5% of what it is to be an entrepreneur, which is the financial benefit and being your own boss or whatever that is. I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? Because I don't think you are. You're a boss to your employees. You work with a lot of people. You work with employees, you work with customers, and you're not a boss. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you may call directions, but that doesn't mean that you're dictating a lot of stuff, right? There's still a lot of stuff that dictates your life. So I think being an entrepreneur, you got to be very, very aware of, not just providing, a value for yourself, but a value for other people and your customers, right? And if you can do that successfully, then in return, the byproduct is you making a lot of money, right? And being able to, live a successful financial life. But I think entrepreneurship is hard, man. I mean, I haven't, I feel like we've had a good, very run at, scale and, right time, right market, and just everything, right? We've had a lot of luck, but I think, we've thought about the business as not a ATM machine. So when we started the company, it wasn't about sucking all the cash out to go buy cars and houses and stuff like that. It was just reinvesting. So I think, first and foremost, don't think you're going to get into entrepreneurship and make tons of money and then the business will be super successful. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. There's a lot of competitors out. And also too, you got to delay gratification for as long as possible to scale your organization, just like how you would with an investment opportunity, right? Like the larger units you have, the more capital it's going to cost, but eventually it gets a lot higher, cash flow. And that's the same with the business. The higher the business can scale up and then you can build it to where it's reliable and dependable. That's when it's, I feel like it's a lot more better, but it takes a lot of time and effort to reinvest the capital to grow the company and treat it the right way and not like an ATM machine and think it's something it's not, because business is always changing. Markets are hot, markets are not. You know what I mean? Rates are high, rates are low, right? There's so many different dynamics in businesses are getting crushed every single year by just every new wave of, there's something that can take them out. And you got to constantly be reinventing yourself and your business. And also too, you got to constantly be reinventing what it takes to be successful and what it makes you to be happy as an entrepreneur. It's a crazy game. You know what I mean? But I would not have it any other way for myself. For guys like me and you and other entrepreneurs, when you find that pocket of kind of fear and opportunity, that's where like I thrive. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm nervous that my employees are going to leave me if I don't provide the best opportunity for them. And I'm nervous, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be able to live my dreams unless I go as hard as I can. Right. So it's like this fear of like, of not being successful and losing it all and achieving my dreams, which is like this weird, happy place I've been able to find and kind of live in, which is crazy to think about.
So two things off that. One, what types of people do you think shouldn't be entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I think someone that, as an entrepreneur, you got to be thinking about like a gazillion different things at once. And especially when you start scaling a company, there's a lot of different things that are going to happen, right? With personnel, with systems, with operations, with taxes, insurance, and lawyers and attorneys and all this stuff, right? There's so many different things in place. And I think people, when they become an entrepreneurship and then they start handling all this stuff and they don't want to let anything go, those are the ones that are going to have a hard time, because you can never scale your company and try to know everything that's going on at all times. You need to put systems, and then you need to put people in place to manage those systems, and then give them the entrepreneurial kind of, bandwidth within their little department to scale out, and improve the opportunity for them and, that department. Right. So I think people that want to control everything, which is, hey, that's a good thing to have, but you can't control every little aspect in your business. You know what I mean? So I think for me, I was able to learn how to delegate and allow these people to go out and, expand their departments and help grow the company. So I think if you're trying to control every little thing in your business and try to oversee everything, you're going to drive yourself mad. You know what I mean? So that's not a great life. You know what I mean? Like I like coming in and having everything rocking and rolling and all the departments are moving, and I can get my daily reports and my meetings. And that's how I get my updates of what's going on. And still to this day, even with my departments that I overlook, which is technology and marketing, I'm not physically doing anything, right? I manage, my direct reports, and they give me my feedback, right, with their teams, right? So that way they can go out and execute. And then we just look at the data, we look at the reports to determine, what's the best way to pivot. And I think that's where you find a better balance of being an entrepreneur. And those are the guys that are ultimately successful, where they can scale it. You know what I mean? And, for me personally, I believe that as an entrepreneur, you should always be looking to scale it. I don't agree with just keeping a business small. I think at all times you should be looking to scale the business. I think at all times you can be wiped out. You know what I mean? So if you're not constantly looking to improve yourself and also grow your company, you're doing yourself a disservice, but more importantly, you're doing your team. You know what I mean? A smaller business has a way higher chance of getting knocked out. You know what I mean? Than a potential bigger business does. Right. So I think, it's your obligation as a leader of the company to grow the company as big as you can get it and profitable as possible, to maintain longevity and give your employees the best opportunity, along with providing the best customer experience.
Yeah, and another big point too is when you think about it, like living in that place of fear and urgency, but still being really level-headed as to how you operate. Like, how do you think about that? Right? Because I'm sure a lot of people who have seen a level of success, especially doing it fairly young, is that you get to a place of complacency. Like, hey,
Yeah.
things are good, right? We're doing okay. Like, how do you think about the kind of both sides, that right? The urgency piece of it and still, and like the complacency piece of it still as well.
Yeah. So I think you got to find new levels of like, what it means to be successful. Right. So in the beginning, it was just about like trying to get to that certain level of like income or whatever for the business or personal. Right. But then if you hit that, then what's next? Because there's not like a lot of joy once you hit it. Like I'm sure you've had hit, financial goals in your life, and you're proud of yourself, you're excited, but it dies really quickly. And you instantly think, what the heck do I do next? Right. So I've gone through different stages of my business where it was like survival mode, and then it was like income mode, and then it was, scaling mode. And for me right now, personally, it's just like, you got to find these new joys of where the business is at and where you can take it. So it's just looking forward and being like, wow, we could be a massive, direct funder in the space where these companies are doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue, going public. And that's like the ultimate goal for us right now. Right. So I think having these big visions and these big goals for each part of your business, and sometimes baby steps are good. I kind of feel like I did it a lot slower than I probably, it was my first business. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't even know what the heck, you know, I was getting into. Right. So I think it was just ignorance was bliss, and I just followed the cookie crumbs as I went. But, yeah, man, I think just having different levels of like something to chase after is like super important, because the money's going to die real quick. Um, there has to be something that motivates you other than just the money. And I know it's like super cliche. The money is the byproduct. You're going to get it no matter what. So if your business is small and not performing, your byproducts are going to be low. Your business has huge scale, you're going to make the money. So that's irrelevant out of the question. But where can you find the joy out of that other than just making the money, right? And it's about building, for me personally, about building. It's about technology. It's about constantly improving on what we're doing and finding the joys in that, right? Because that will override all the hard times and all the BS that you have to deal with as an entrepreneur, and all the tough times, right? Of being like, hey, in my head, I'm like, what happens if we were a publicly traded company? What happens if we were able to scale this thing to do, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue? That is something I can chase after. I can't chase after, man, it would be great to make $1 million a month and in personal income or something, right? That's not a needle mover for myself. I need to have a bigger why than just a financial reason. Because once you have the financial means and you have security, it's what is a couple of extra zeros in your bank account? You're not going to have you might have a little bit nicer place, a little bit nicer car, and a couple of nicer things, right? But for me, it's about scaling a business and growing it, and and really achieving my ultimate dreams, which is having a massive company, and that's what it's always been.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like that goalpost always moves too, especially when it's purely financial. When you kind of think about just your personal goals that way too, right? Of like you hit it, excites you for a little bit, and that it takes more and more and more to excite you each time. Then from there as well.
Yeah.
So before we hop here, what advice do you have to someone who's looking to go grow their company? And also, what's the how and why should listeners reach out to you here as well?
Yeah. So I think, if you're looking to grow your company, you got to look at what the marketplace is doing and how you can do it better, right? Look at your competitors, look at, guys that are in your space that are doing things bigger than you, and how can I duplicate that, and then how can I do it better? Because you're going to see things you like and you don't like about what they're doing, and then you obviously take the things that you like, and then the things you don't like, you put your spin on it, right? But I think you got to find a product that you believe in. You got to find an industry that you really enjoy listening to. I listen to stuff on marketing, technology, and investing all day long on YouTube and Instagram. That's all I listen to. So I have a passion for this stuff, right? So I think you got to have a passion for whatever you're doing, because it's going to fizzle out. You know what I mean? If you don't have that drive. So having the drive, but ultimately, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, just try to think big, right? Think bigger outside of your comfort zone, because every single time I've done it in my life, and I've gotten to that next level, I'm like, wow, why didn't I think even bigger, right? Why did I limit myself to these numbers, and why did I limit myself to these opportunities? Why didn't I go challenge myself on these harder tasks, right? Because as you know, every problem is the same problem. It's a harder, bigger challenge, or it's a smaller challenge, right? They're all problems. They're all freaking brain, damage anyway. So why not go after something that has a bigger win? And that's kind of like my thought process behind it. I'm going to be dealing with stress, anxiety, and, bunch of stuff in the business every day. Why not deal with all that stuff and have a huge opportunity for myself and my employees? You know what I mean? Like, why would I go after the small wins? You know what I mean? So I think going after something big, and building something bigger than yourself, and not just thinking, what is in the best interest for yourself, but what's in the best interest of, of your team, and can you get people to believe in it, and ultimately help them achieve their goals while achieving your goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it too, right? Like the bigger the problem you're going to solve and the bigger the opportunity you have, you can also attract better people. You can also go invest
Yeah.
more in systems and process and technology and allow yourself to go operate at a higher level and be around better people. Like I think part of why, people like ourselves love the spaces that we're in is that you get to interact with top people all day long. And the bigger you think, the better people you get to go work with, right? In terms of people on your team, paying them what they deserve, right? Giving them attractive comp packages, giving them a vision to go believe in as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And people that want to work with you, they don't want to work with somebody that has small goals. I'm sorry. That's going to fizzle out for them. They want to improve their life, right? They want to chase after something in their life, right? So find out what that is. And is there an opportunity for them? Then great, create that and allow them to expand, allow them to try things, allow them to break things, you know what I mean? Within reason, and just give people an opportunity. And that's all I ever wanted. And the reason why I started my company is because the owner wasn't showing up. The owner wasn't, had a big enough vision for me. So I was like, hey, if this guy can do it, I can probably do it. You know what I mean? And I slowly, incrementally pushed myself over that ledge. but it's just like, hey, if this guy's not willing to push it harder, like I know that it's possible. Why am I going to stay here? Right. So I think for me and my team here is like, we're constantly pushing the bounds of what's acceptable around here. Complacency is not it. You know what I mean? And just the status quo is not it. Right. So if they're not in that, that energy, it's tough for them to kind of be here. We need people that want to scale, improve their life, and also help us improve the business and fall in love with their roles within the company to help us grow. You know what I mean? So I think finding those people is like, that's the key. You know what I mean? Because these people will push and, but at the same time, they want to be compensated. And at the same time, they want to be taken care of. And at the same time, they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Same thing I want to, right? And I think if you build that dream and you get your whole company behind that, it's a powerful force, because it's not just you anymore. It's 40, 50 people all thinking the same way. Or you got 80% of the people, which I kind of believe here, we have 80, 90% of the people that have the same mentality here. You know what I mean? When you walk in, you can feel it. And guys are hustling and bustling, from our tech department to our marketing department to our sales department. Every department's ran the same way, right? And it's just full force and trying to get better, right? So I think share that dream with your employees and share that vision with your team members, even if it's a small team or big team. Share it with it and just go for sky's the limit. You know what I mean? Because there's unlimited amount of opportunity. There's no point to, have a small goal.
Dude, I love it. I think the getting people to rally behind you makes a lot of sense right now as well in terms of what you're doing. So I can definitely hear how you speak about it. But before we hop off here, how and why should listeners reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram. I think that's like the best way to follow me. So, I started it about a year ago, and I didn't really have like any objective with it, but it was really just to kind of like network with other entrepreneurs. Like I was this guy that was working in an office every day and no one knew me and no one, was able to like communicate with me. I just kept my own orbit, you know what I mean? And it was great for a while because I was able to kind of just focus on my business. But now I use social media as just a networking tool. I can network with a bunch of different people, talk to a bunch of different people. I talk to a bunch of different people within my space, and I can get feedback like crazy, right? So I was able to grow my social media account, and that's been a huge benefit for me. But I like just, sharing lifestyle stuff, which is fun, and just enjoying life and entrepreneurship, right? So Instagram @TheLeadGod. You can message me. I talk to everybody. And then I have a YouTube kind of podcast thing as well. So I'm going to start rolling out some more episodes of that, where I interview entrepreneurs and all that good stuff. And we're going to be talking a lot about our fund and my business partner on there as well. And that's going to be @TheLeadGod on YouTube. And then if you're looking to invest, we're going to be rolling out our fund here pretty soon. I'm going to be announcing it on our Instagram, and our website is kudo-capital.com. And we're going to have a lot of information on the fund and how you can invest and, hopefully get these higher yields that we're trying to achieve for you guys.
Cool. Ken, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into the Fully Funded Show hosted by Sam Silverman. If you are enjoying the content, let's take your journey further in the Fully Funded Mastermind. The Fully Funded Mastermind offers more than just insights. It's a mastermind community designed to solve the real challenge of raising capital. By joining, you gain direct access to strategies, coaching, and a network dedicated to turning your financial goals into achievements. Don't let capital raising be a barrier to your success. Visit fullyfunded.capital to explore how our mastermind community can pave your way to financial growth.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fully Funded Show. If you enjoyed today's insights, hit follow, share with your investing pals, and drop us a review. Connect with us on social media for bonus content. Your success is our mission. Keep those funds flowing. See you next time.